Well, it's good. I mean, he's trained with us really from the start. It's been more a question of waiting for the go-ahead from his surgeon in Finland, but he got that actually last week. So as far as I'm concerned, basically, I don't have any great concerns, but of course he hasn't played a competitive match for many months. So it was good that he could get some minutes in today's game, but if he comes through that okay, then we're going to be able to start counting on him. With the other two, their injuries were such that they are still being monitored. Both have made incredibly good progress, much quicker than we expected. But we'll still have to wait till tomorrow to see if Wednesday is a game too soon or whether they can make it.
This is a special match for you. Is it the Roy Hodgson derby?
No, not really. But it was a special match because the 4 years at Crystal Palace were very special, as I've said on many occasions, and I think this was proven really when I left the club. And so many of the players that would be playing against us were players that I worked with during the course of those 4 years, many of them through the whole spell. So it will be strange to be lining up on the other side, wishing them harm and wishing us well.
You've only ever faced Palace as an opposition manager twice in your whole career. Can you remember the two games?
No.
Blackburn, 1997, in August and December, a 2-1 win and a 2-2 draw. Any memories of those games against Palace?
Maybe the 2-2 draw at Palace, because I think they scored very, very early in the second half. I think there was one game where I was barely out on the field and they'd scored, but that I presume if they were the two occasions I faced them, that's what it must be with Blackburn. Yeah.
It's odd though, isn't it, over your long career that you've faced Palace as an opposition manager so rarely.
Yeah.
And there's no sentiment now, is there? You need to bring them down on Wednesday night.
Well, there's never any sentiment. When you work for a football club, you work for the football club, and you work for the club that are paying your wages and relying upon you to get a result for their team and to earn your money, if you like, with the team that is employing you. So you can't have sentiment. There's going to be lots of occasions, and it'll happen more and more, where managers do come up against former clubs. They do come up against former players. In fact, there's very rarely I play in a Premier League game, either with Palace or even more so now here with Watford, where there aren't players on the opposing team that I've known well or worked with. But this one, as you rightly say, it's a special occasion, not least of all because of our table position and the need for us to try and get results.
What do you make of Palace, Roy? They got 26 points after 25 games. Last season, you had 32 on the board after the same amount of games. What do you make of it?
I don't make anything of that. I mean, we were doing very well until we got hit by a spate of very, very important injuries. So in actual fact, the last 5 or 6 games of the season were virtually destroyed for us by a combination of two things. One, the injury situation, which meant we were scrambling around at times. We looked like we had good cover in all positions, but suddenly we even lost our cover players in the positions. But not least of all because so many players were running out of contract. And of course, the closer we got to the end of the season with no word as to whether they'd be going or staying, that didn't exactly help our situation either. But I think had that not happened and we could have kept the team together that played in the first 30 games, we'd have finished a lot higher up in the league than we did.
You're looking for back-to-back wins after Villa. What has that win done, say, for confidence here?
Well, I think it's done quite a lot because 3 months, well, I think it was even more than 3 months. I don't know the exact date when we won against Manchester United. I think it was in November, but I don't know the exact date. But, I mean, you're talking 3 months, possibly more than 3 months between wins. And, of course, that's a long time to go without a win wherever you're playing, let alone the Premier League. So I think the players were really delighted to get that win, especially since it came after playing well. It wasn't a lucky win like you sometimes get, which gets you out of a situation. It was a win that we worked for. So that's got to have been good for them. It's got to have been good for the confidence. But on the other hand, we've had a nice couple of days where we can bask in the glow, if you like, of winning a game. But now it really comes back once again to resetting everything to that 0.0 and making certain that whatever we did against that Villa that worked, we've got to do that again.
A couple of final points, some interesting results at the weekend, weren't there? If you go from Norwich up to Villa, 10 teams are separated another 10 points. I mean, who do you think is in this relegation battle? Does it go up to Villa?
No, 10 points is an enormous amount of points. I think it's going to be certainly less than that under normal circumstances. The one thing you can never factor in is if a team's going to have a catastrophic run, and it has happened. It happened to us at the end of the season. Crystal Palace were in line for a top 10 finish, and you get those injuries, you get those problems, and you sink down to a mid-table position after all. So these things can happen, but realistically, I think the teams that have got that many points on the board and have such a good margin will still be feeling fairly safe, but they'll be fearing that catastrophic plunge, which is always possible in this league, because losing a number of games in a row, everybody knows is possible.
Maybe even a team like Palace.
I don't see it. I think they're too good. I think they've got too many experienced players. I think they've recruited well, so I don't see them being in any danger at all. But of course, it's easy for me to say that. I'm pretty certain that Steve and Patrick and the people working with the team, they won't be quite as bullish as I am. They're realistic, and they'll be wanting to win the game against us to make certain that gap stays as big as it is at the moment.
One last one, you've got to stop Wilf.
Yes, he's very, very good, Wilf. I've said so much about him over the years. My admiration and high esteem that I have for him hasn't dimmed. It would have been nice to have seen him in slightly worse form than he seems to be in at the moment. But unfortunately, every team you play has got a Wilf Zaha type of player who's quite capable of winning the match and making life extremely difficult for you. So Crystal Palace are lucky to have a player of that calibre.
Excellent.
Roy, I think you said after the Villa win, you've alluded to it a bit here as well, the danger is now that you think you've cracked it. How difficult can it be getting that balance right? Allowing the players to enjoy the victory and really get the confidence from it. But as you use the word there, resetting it back to zero, just getting that right ahead of Wednesday, which is, of course, another huge game.
I don't know these days with the Premier League as compromised as it is in terms of the fixtures and how many times you have to play. There's quite a lot of 3-game weeks these days, especially for the teams playing in Europe. I don't know that you ever get more than a day to savour a victory. I think, as soon as you get into the training ground, even the day after, you're starting already to think, well, at least that was a decent night's sleep and I didn't wake up 10 times thinking of how bad we were. That's a bonus. But on the other hand, of course, now we've got to start thinking about the next one. And the fact that you've won a game doesn't make the next game easier. If anything, it could make the next game slightly harder. I've got to believe that the type of players we have at this club and the experienced players we have at the club will not allow any sort of complacency to settle in, and that they all do realise the importance of the occasion. I can only tell them about that. It's up to them to make certain that their mindset is reset as it should be, but they'll certainly be getting the right information from us and being told what's important. And it's really now a question of, are they going to be good enough to reproduce that performance and get another result? I believe we have got that in us. I do believe we are capable. But as I've said on so many occasions, Wailing tonight don't play, the players play.
You also touched on Wilf Zaha there and the creative spark he had, what he can do, the kind of impact he can have in a game for the time at Palace. I know your time at Watford has been very short so far, but who do you feel is your equivalent player in this Watford squad right now in that attacking unit?
Well, I think we've got 3 here, to be fair, who are all capable of putting that cloak on their shoulders. It's I wouldn't really necessarily, having worked with the players for a short period of time, to pick one of the 3 out. But we do know that the 3 players we used up front against Aston Villa, they are talented. They do have weapons at their disposal. There's no question of that. Different weapons, but they do have weapons at their disposal, just in the same way that Wilf has. But of course, what Wilf has done, he has shouldered a very heavy burden for a number of years, because he was always regarded as our main threat. I think here teams looking at us and analysing us might divide that threat a bit more equally.
With that attacking unit, those 3 players, they conjured up a goal on Saturday. It was the first of 5, though, wasn't it? Have you noticed perhaps a little bit more of a spring in their step at the training grounds since? Did you expect that to spark a bit of confidence going forward?
Well, goals are hard to come by, especially in the games we played. Against Burnley, we had a couple of good chances, and we were very unlucky not to score at least one time against West Ham. And as a result, if you don't score the goals in those games, you build up a statistic for everybody to consistently hit you with. We aren't, I don't think, going to be the league's highest scorers. That's going to be Manchester City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Man United. But if you look at the teams and analyse their players, perhaps it's not quite so surprising that they're the teams, because when you spend literally $500 million or more on players who are going to score your goals, there's a good chance you'll get one or two that can score your goals. So we have to compare ourselves really with the teams around us in that bottom half of the table and ask the question, how much worse are we than the others in terms of our goal scoring ability or our goal scoring threat? To be frank, I don't know that we are far behind them. The number of goals we've let in is every bit as damaging to us as the ones we haven't scored.